Smile.
But I'm not happy.
People
Why are you
staring.
I don't want to do this.
You have to. They'll know
No one
something's
cares
wrong.
about your
Why
life.
is that bad?
Nobody cares. They won't understand.
Nobody
You want to
cares.
go home. You'll hurt their feelings.
This was ridiculous.
What are we even talking about? Just
you want to
keep
keep
them
them
happy.
happy.
What if they
They're
think
gonna
you're
be mean.
stupid?
Just keep them happy.
Just keep them happy.
Just lie.
I'm not here to sugarcoat, life's already a bumpy road. Too much shelter causes pain, let's just be real honest. Things are gonna knock you down, avoidance will not help you out. Let's talk it through, here me and you, let's keep it real honest.
Hi, hello, it's me. I'm Samantha. Welcome to my podcast. This is Real Honest, where I share candid thoughts and feelings about life, love, and relationships, God and church, adulting, the workplace, and all the things in between. Let's jump in. As you already know, unless you're new here, in which case, welcome, and you're going to find out pretty quickly that pretty much all that my brain does is analyze relationships every day, all the time. I just think about all of my friends and even the people that are not my friends, acquaintances, coworkers, like everybody that I know. I think about all of them all day long. And I just wonder like how I can be like, I just want to communicate better, and I want other people to communicate better with me. And I just want to be the very best friend and boss and employee and coworker and acquaintance and sister and daughter, whatever. I just want to be the best that I possibly can be at all of my roles, so that at the end of the day, everybody like feels good having me in their life. Like that's something that means something to them, and I would like vice versa. And I've been thinking a lot this past week about the time and effort that it takes to get there with somebody, which is why I titled this episode After You Took the Time to Memorize Me, My Fears, My Hopes and Dreams. I just like hanging out with you all the time. But basically today I want to explore and attempt to define like what it really means to feel known and heard and loved by someone, and also what it looks like to make others feel that way. In most cases, I think that relational intimacy requires a lot of time. And I know I've talked about this a million times before, like there's really no substitute for time. Like if you just need to spend time with someone to get to know them, and you either have limited time available or they have limited time available, or you live in other states and countries and you just can't get time with each other frequently, you're going to just have to wait until the time accrues over time. But I'm also, recently I'm learning, I don't think that time is the only or necessarily the most important factor when it comes to relational intimacy. I think in a lot of cases you can just pay attention. I think that you can just pay attention and put in effort, and then you don't need as much time. So first of all, what even is relational intimacy? According to Google, it's a deep sense of closeness, connection, and trust between two people. I agree with that. That's the definition I'm using for the rest of this podcast. So I'm going to run through a few different examples to try to help illustrate this, because I find that when I talk to people about this, we're working with very different definitions. So when I talk about knowing somebody well, there is a difference between knowing things about someone and actually knowing a person. And the way that I would differentiate this is like knowing the name of the company that your friend works at, or knowing their job title, versus knowing what they actually do day to day and whether or not they like their job. It's the difference between knowing what somebody's favorite color is and knowing why that's their favorite color. My father, for example, loves a spotless home. And I remember growing up as a kid, like our house was always so unbelievably clean, which I'm actually glad that I learned how to clean so well, because people always come over and compliment how clean my house is. I don't fault him for this. I love how clean it is. However, I never understood growing up why he wanted it to be so clean. It just was a chore of mine that I had to help clean the house. And I remember cleaning the kitchen, and he would stand in the doorway and watch me clean the kitchen, and he would wait until I had like hung up the towels and was walking away to come behind me and just point at things that I had missed. And it just was so like, infuriating to me. And I honestly would, like, I kept my room so clean more out of fear that I was going to get yelled at, or out of irritation that my parents were going to say something to me, and I just never wanted anyone to mention anything about dirt. So I would just always be obsessively clean. That's very different from like, I love my parents and I know that they value cleanliness. So as part of our relationship, I'm going to do my best to be clean. So when I think about the role of time when it comes to relational intimacy, when it comes to this sense of closeness, connection, and trust between two people, I would assume that I would be the closest relationally with my family members, because I have spent the largest amount of time with them, in terms of like, we all lived in the same house for 20 years. But looking back and looking at conversations that I have with friends and family now, even though my family was physically together a lot, we weren't asking the right questions. We weren't saying or doing the right things, in my opinion, to be able to really get to know and understand each other. So I think there are a lot, like, I know things about my family members. Like, I know who's cool with their food touching and who's not. I know who likes to drive fast. I know who likes to travel, but I don't know the why behind any of these things. And I don't feel like we really built up that trust to want to deeply share the whys with each other. And then on the other hand, I have a newer friend that I used to work with that we maybe had a handful of conversations. Like, I would have to ask them, but I'm pretty sure that we have had less than 5 one-on-one conversations. And in our most recent conversation, I had mentioned this podcast for some reason, and they were like, oh, you have a podcast? Like, what's it called? I'll listen to it. And typically when people say this, I don't expect them to actually follow through. I don't really think a whole lot of it. I just kind of feel like it's a polite, generic response. It's kind of like when you know a newlywed couple, you say like, how's married life? When do you want kids? Like, those are just like the common questions that you ask. If you know a high school student, you ask, where do you want to go to college? If you know a college student, you ask, what do you want to do with your life? What are you studying? And usually the people in these positions hate those questions because they get those questions all the time, but you're just trying to make conversation and you want to say something. So it kind of feels like the quote unquote correct thing to say when somebody mentions that they have a podcast is to say, oh, what's it called? I'll listen to it. But, you know, I told them and like went on about my day. And what was really, really cool is they texted me the next day and said, I just listened to your first episode. I really loved it. And I was like, oh, cool. Like, thank you. I appreciate that. That's really nice. But then they went on to tell me like specific things that they related to from it. And things that like relationships that I have that like mirror relationships in their own life and like different things. And then a few days later, they were like, hey, like I'm sitting here trying to make this decision about a friend. And I'm thinking about like this thing that you said on this other episode of your podcast. And it was really, really cool that they actually sat and like listened to my thoughts and my ideas and walked away saying like, that's not something that I have deeply thought about before, but now that I am deeply thinking about it, like I do agree and I want to know more and enter into like a dialogue with Samantha about this. And that made me feel like really, really seen. And just like, I felt like so close to this person in ways that like people that I've spent a whole lot of time with, but we haven't had conversations that have like an emotional response or like a meeting of the minds intellectually. Like the time doesn't matter in those cases because it's like we didn't do anything with this time. I do want to throw the question out there though. What makes you feel known? What makes you feel like the people in your life know you well? Because I'm sure that this is not the same for all of us. You know, for me, it's the difference between the people who texted me last week and said like, did you watch New Heights? Hey, did you see Taylor on Travis's podcast? It's the difference between the people who asked those questions and the people who said, what did you think of the podcast? Was it everything that you hoped? Did you love the interview? Was it the best ever? Did you decipher all the Easter eggs and everything? Right? Because the first two questions or what they communicate to me is this person knows that I like Taylor Swift. That's a fact about me that they are aware of. What the other questions communicate to me is that these people know that I have post notifications on for Taylor Swift. And anytime that anything is happening, I'm like the first person in even my circle of friends that are all Swifties. Like I'm typically the first one that knows because I'm on social media a lot and I pay attention to things. And, people that are like, if Samantha is a Swiftie and I'm not, the likelihood that I heard about this before her is low, right? So people that know that I like Taylor Swift, but they don't know why, or they don't know the depth of it. Like those people were asking me, did I watch or listen to the podcast? And I feel like those people don't know me super well, because I feel like anyone that does know me super well knows that like I took the day off work, I blocked this on my calendar, like this was an event in my home. Was sitting down and watching this. My phone was on Do Not Disturb. I was like, nobody speak to me during this, because I'm just so excited to hear directly from Taylor and I want to know everything. And I feel like people that know me well would know that about me. But I have also had conversations with people in the last week who have told me that they do not see a difference in the questions. They were like, I don't see how did you watch/listen to the interview versus assuming that you listened to it and then asking a more specific question. I don't see how those are different. I don't see how they're communicating different things. And I find that interesting because they're definitely communicating different things to me. But so this is just something for me to take in and know, like, okay, when I'm communicating with that person, I need to be more specific, but I also can't take it to heart if they say or do something and I don't feel seen or known by it, and then they don't know. But I guess my extra step is like, if I tell them, like if I explain, well, here's why I felt more known by the second question than the first question, and they're like, oh, okay. Then my brain is like, well, if they care about me feeling known by them in the future, then they would learn to ask the second question. But that's also, it's asking for a lot, because I just naturally do this. Like I feel like I just pay attention to my friends. I pay attention to what they talk about and what's important to them. And I follow up on things that I know about them that I find interesting. And typically, if my friend is really into something that I'm not, like, so sorry for all the people that this is really going to upset, but like I do not like Beyonce's music, most of it. There's only like 4 songs of hers that I like, but for the most part, I don't, I just can't get into it. I don't know what it is, but I'm just not a fan. Cameron, however, is a huge, huge, huge fan. And because he loves Beyonce so much, I love listening to him talk about Beyonce. I love listening to him talk about the shows and the album drops and just anything that he ever wants to talk about related to Beyonce. I'm totally down to hear it, because his excitement makes me excited to like hear a good story, to learn something, or whatever it is. But I also know that because I don't follow whatever Beyonce is doing, and I assume that Cameron does, anytime that I see something, if I see that she's got a new album or she's announcing a tour or whatever, I'm always going to assume that Cameron already knows. And so I'm never going to text him and be like, oh my gosh, did you see Beyonce has a new album? Because he would be like, where have you been? Under a rock? I'm going to say like, do you have tickets to the tour already? But I do want to note that I think that there are people out there who do see knowing facts about them and not knowing the why behind it. That's enough for them, and they do feel known when that's what you know. I think there are people in the world who would say like, oh, if my friends and family could list off my job description, my favorite color, and the genre of music that I like, and they can't go any deeper into those details, but they know like those basic high level things, then like, yeah, I would say that they know me. And so I'm trying to be more cognizant of the fact that there are a lot of people that are not like me, so that I get less upset with them when they are knowing me the way that they like to be known, but it's not happening in the reverse. I'm going to relate this to building intimacy with God because I think that it's a good example. And also this came up in the small group that I lead because a lot of the girls and I are reading through the Bible recap together. And multiple people, I feel like in the past few weeks, have been like sharing in the group chat that like they're getting really bored and they're struggling to find the time every day. And I'm having the same issue. Like I kind of want to put it down and I'm like, I'm over this. Like I'm super, oh my gosh, the Kings and the Chronicles was rough for me. I just was falling asleep every single day. And so last time we all met, we got to talking about, do we feel like God is happier with us when we just take the time to read every day, even if we're rushing through it and not remembering it or not retaining it? Or do we feel like God would rather us just read once a week or once a month if we're going to actually sit down and pay attention and retain the information? And I was like, I definitely think God would prefer that we actually pay attention and retain the information versus just go through the motions more often. But part of what I really like about the Bible recap is that Tara Lee Covell, who's the author, like she explains in the introduction that when she was growing up and learning how to read the Bible, she felt like nobody ever told her like really the purpose of the Bible is for us to understand who God is. It's for us to get to know God. And so I think she says that like as a kid, she grew up searching for herself in the Bible. Like she was reading the Bible, trying to figure out like, why am I here? What am I supposed to do? And that's originally why I picked it up and introduced it to my group, because that was exactly the experience I was having. I was like, I thought what was the acronym? Oh my gosh, when I was in youth group, I think the acronym for Bible was an acronym for basic instructions before leaving Earth, which I just think is so crazy because I'm like, there's nothing about the Bible that is basic and it's totally not instructions before leaving Earth. Like what on earth? But I found it really hard to read because I was reading it searching for those instructions. Like I thought like it was going to leap off the page that God was going to say, Samantha, you are here for this reason and you are to do this. And it was essentially going to be like a roadmap of where I was supposed to go and what I was supposed to do. And that's just not what it is. But it's a collection of stories that tells me who God is so that I can eventually get to a point where I would be able to describe Jesus the same way that I describe my best friend, like not with physical attributes, but with personality traits. And in the Christian community, we talk a lot about the voice of the Holy Spirit versus the voice of like just your own inner voice, your conscience, versus the voice of the devil. And it's like, how do you differentiate between these things? And it's like, well, when you read the Bible and you learn the personality of God and you learn how he speaks and what's important to him, then it's able to differentiate. So for example, like, God does not give you a fearful spirit. He gives us power and love and of a sound mind. God does not love anxiety. And we would say that like the devil loves anxiety and uses anxiety to distract us and to pull us away from things. So typically what I would tell my group is like, if you're feeling really, really anxious, then that is not from God, because we know that God doesn't give us anxiety. He gives us peace. So I feel like if, in the decision of like, should I be reading the Bible every day, or is it okay to read it once a week or once a month or whatever, I'm like, well, how are you feeling when you make that decision? Like if you decide that you're going to stop reading it every day and you're going to read it once a month or once a quarter even, whatever. But if you're like, I've been reading this every day for the last 3 months and I'm getting bored and burnt out and I don't want to anymore, do you have peace about that decision? Like, do you feel good? Do you feel okay? Or do you feel anxious? Do you feel like, well, God's mad at me and God's going to smite me down because I didn't read for 5 minutes today? Because that's not how he operates. Like, that's not his personality. So to say like, you took the time to memorize me, I feel like that's really all God is asking us to do when we read the Bible. He's just asking us to take the time to memorize him, to get to know him, how he speaks, what he loves, what he hates, what he's interested in. And I think that's the same thing with people in our lives. Like, it's finding out what what our family and friends are interested in, what makes them tick, what they get excited about, and understanding the why behind those things that helps us really get to know each other. And I want to make sure I mention that I do not claim to be any expert at this or better at it than anybody else. I do think that I'm pretty good at paying attention to people and learning about them. I think that I go out of my way to try to do that. But I did notice something new about myself this past week. So I think I've talked about here many times before on how like small talk drives me insane and I just don't understand. And if somebody is texting me and just saying hi, I'm literally like, what's the point? Like, what do you want? Can we just get to it? And it's funny because sending a message that just says hi means different things to different people. Like if I send hi to my best friend, hi means hello, how are you? I love you. You're my favorite person in the whole wide world, and I don't add any of those other words to that. Sending hi to anyone in my family just means hi. Like it's just straight up saying hello. And it's like, okay. And then they say hello back. And then it's like, what was the point? What did that do for anybody? And I have people in my life who do this frequently, whether it's just hi or it's something else, but it's always just like random nonsense that has no context, that doesn't mean anything, and there's no question attached, and we're not close enough for it to mean you're my favorite person in the whole world. So it's just kind of like, what is the point here? And I always get really frustrated, and I'm like sitting here talking to ChatGPT, like, what are they trying to say to me? Like, and why can't they just say it? But this past week, I figured it out because I had a revelation. Like, I do this. I do it with my sisters. Like, I text my sisters and I just say random nonsense. Like, I just say hi, or I send them a picture of my food, or I say like, hey, what are you doing? And whenever I ask what they're doing, I really don't care. I have no interest in knowing what they're doing because it doesn't matter, because I'm not going to do it with them. So why do I care? I would only care if I like wanted to call them right then. I might be like, what are you doing? Are you busy? Like, do you have time to talk? But I wouldn't do that. I would just call them. And then if they didn't answer, I would know that they're busy and don't have time to talk. And I would move on and call somebody else. But anyway, once I realized that I actually do this too, I started to sit down and think about, why do I do this? Like when I text my sisters hi, or I send them a picture of my food, is there more behind what I'm saying, or am I literally just saying hello? And there is so much more behind it. What I'm saying is, I want to talk to you, but I don't know how. I want to have a conversation, but I don't know what to talk to you about. I don't know how to engage with you. And I think that this goes back to the fact that I really don't know my sisters, like as adults. I think that we all, obviously we knew each other when we lived in the same house and we were kids and teenagers growing up. But we were never having like those conversations about the why behind certain behaviors. So I think it was more that like, I know the genre of music that my sister likes. I know the type of boy that she wants to date, that kind of thing. But I didn't really understand. Like I just learned last week that my sisters don't listen to the lyrics or read the lyrics when they listen to music. And I do not listen to music without having the lyrics open in front of me, because that's half the experience to me. I'm like, if the song is not telling a good story or doing something interesting lyrically, then I'm not listening to it. But we are just very different, and that's okay. So as I realized this, I was like, okay, so this is on me, because all I'm doing is saying hi or sending a picture of my food, and they're saying hi back or giving a thumbs up, and it's not leading to a conversation. And I was like, so I need to try harder to actually have a conversation. Like I need to go in with a purpose or a question to try to learn something. So I sent them both this question, and my question was, what is something that you consider yourself an expert in? Something that you could give an impromptu presentation on that would be fun and require very little research. Something that maybe if like a friend of yours was on a game show and they needed to phone a friend to help out with the answer and they called you, like what would the topic of the game show be? And one of my sisters responded with gummy bears. Flavors of gummy bears that are delicious to eat together. And then my other sister responded with like a short dissertation about all of the things that she knows a lot about and could give presentations on, which were all work related because she has a job where she frequently has to present on different topics. And then said that she doesn't feel like she's really an expert in anything and doesn't think that she's good at trivia. And she listed off like some things that she likes, but doesn't think that she knows enough facts about them to be able to like win a trivia game show or whatever. And I'm just sitting here like, maybe my question was too long and complicated, and I should have just said, hey, tell me 5 things that you're really into, because that's all I really wanted to know. But I was trying to make it more specific to get a better answer that was gonna tell me something. And essentially the answers that I got, it told me what I already know about them, where like one of them, when she answered this, she was on vacation. I'm sure that she looked at my question and she was like, that's too many words. I don't really want to dive into this right now. I'm going to keep it light and fun and happy and tell a joke and move on. And the other one was like, oh my gosh, this is a really long question. Samantha wants to engage with me. I need to make sure that I do this right. And like overthought it and went way too analytical with it. And that's because I know this about their personality. So maybe I shouldn't ask them in a group chat. Maybe I should have asked them each one-on-one in different ways. But I am just like, it was not supposed to be that simple and funny, but it was also not supposed to be that hard. Like, I'm just sitting here, like, I have 1,001 answers to this question. Harry Potter, Disney, specifically Disney parks, but could also be Disney movies, could be Disney as a company, Taylor Swift, pop music, pop culture in general, Apple products, movies, film and TV. Like, I'm like, they're so, and of course, like, I guess maybe the word expert was like throwing off, because do I know everything that there is to know about movies and TV? Of course not, but I do consider myself like a film and TV expert. Like I know more than the average person that I interact with day to day about how movies get made. I did go to film school. I watch all the behind the scenes stuff. I have interviewed multiple producers and writers and directors and actors about their craft. So, I guess maybe expert was not the word that I should use. But so then what I did was I tried to over-explain why. I was like, okay, I don't think they're understanding why I even asked them this. So I over-explained the purpose behind the question. And I was like, basically, as you guys know, I've been super frustrated about like people doing small talk and not going deeper. And then I realized that I do the small talk thing with you. And I realized that I do that because I don't really know what to talk to you about. And I don't really know how to jump in and start a conversation. Like, all of our conversations seem to just die pretty quickly and not go anywhere. And we're not really learning about each other. And so then I started to think that like I'm not putting enough effort in to really getting to know you. So I was trying to come up with like a fun, cute way to like start learning more about you. And then like one of my sisters just like dropped off the conversation. I don't know if I don't know if she was physically busy or if she emotionally did not have the energy for it, or if she just didn't care to participate, but she just checked out. And then me and the other one went back and forth for a while longer, where I just really felt like she was not understanding what I was trying to say, and eventually like just stopped. She eventually just stopped responding. And that I felt so unloved by the end of the conversation, because I'm like, I was trying to connect with you, and like one of you essentially said, no, I don't want to connect with you, which, she didn't say that. I just took her absence from the conversation as that response. And I was like, the other one, I'm like, I totally, like, I see that you like are trying to connect with me back, but we just keep missing each other. And whenever I like leave conversations like that, I'm just like so deflated and defeated. And I'm like, do I even bother trying again? Or are we just not supposed to connect with each other? But then I think, like, you choose your friends and you can't choose your family. So you would think that the people in your family are more supposed to teach you something or help you grow in some way because you're stuck with them forever. But that really sucked. Like, it was a very, very difficult conversation, a different kind of hard conversation, I guess, because it wasn't like something I was scared to do going into, but it was more like I definitely thought that it was going to have a different outcome. And I haven't really interacted with my sisters much since then because I don't want to go back to just saying hi and sending pictures of my food, because that does not create any actual connection at the end of the day. But I also don't want to ask another question and be totally ignored and shot down or like just not heard. So I'm just kind of like, where do I go from here? I'm not sure. If anyone has ideas, please let me know. I think the takeaways here are intentionality, patience, and presence, where I feel like I was trying to be very intentional, and I feel like that just was not received by at least one of my sisters. I feel like the other one was trying to be super intentional back, but either did not have the patience or did not have the time to follow through with the full conversation. And I don't think that either of them were fully present, because as long as I was getting responses, I was still trying to be like, all right, you're not getting it, let me try again. Where I think they were both just like, let's just not do this anymore. And I don't know, like maybe, I guess like I'm used to my friends saying things like, I don't have the emotional wherewithal to do this with you right now. Like, sorry. Or, you know, they might disappear. Like there might be a pause in the conversation because they had something to do, in which I don't need them to tell me. Like, you know, I'll tell, if I'm in the middle of a conversation with a friend and we're on the phone, I'll say like, I have to go do XYZ, like I'll call you back. But if we're texting, I just go do the thing that I have to do and I pick up the conversation later. But what I have found is that nobody in my family does that. Like they just kind of stop responding at some point in the middle of a conversation. And so I don't know if they physically had somewhere to be or if they emotionally just couldn't handle the conversation or what it was. But then like we won't talk for days or weeks after that. And then somebody will hop in with something totally different. And I'm sitting there like, we never finished the conversation that we were having. I don't really have anything for the what I'm watching right now segment. I've been reading a lot lately. I just finished Broken Country by Claire Leslie Hall for a book club that meets in a week or so, I think. I really liked that. And then I also just finished Too Late by Colleen Hoover, which I also really liked, but it was also really dark. So I don't know if I would recommend that to you, depending on who you are. Thanks for listening. Leave me a review if you want. New episodes most every Wednesday at 6 a.m. Central. If you have questions, comments, concerns, or want to chat, you can email me at realhonestpod@gmail.com. Okay, bye.
I'm not here to sugarcoat, life's already a bumpy road. Too much shelter causes pain, let's just be real honest. Things are gonna knock you down, avoidance will not help you out. Let's talk it through, hear me and you, let's keep it real honest.